On your marks! Get set!
Killian, I'll be back.
Only in a rerun.
Go!
In 1987, Hollywood took a bleak Stephen King novel about poverty and media exploitation and turned it into a neon action spectacle starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. The Running Man is remembered for its campy villains, one-liners, and over-the-top showmanship, but underneath the glitter is the ghost of a much darker story. This is the movie where message met money, satire became spectacle, and where the future of reality TV was predicted almost too well. In this video, you'll learn why The Running Man almost starred Christopher Reeve instead of Arnold, which Stalker was actually an opera singer with an MIT degree, how the movie predicted modern reality TV with shocking accuracy.
Take command, detain Richards, and proceed as ordered.
Richard, what the fuck are you doing? Get him!
1. King walks away. The Running Man began as a bleak Stephen King novel, published under his pseudonym Richard Bachman. The book was raw, angry, and unflinching about poverty, media exploitation, and desperation. King hated what Hollywood did with his story so much that he refused to let his real name appear in the credits. To him, the film stripped away the grit and turned his dystopian nightmare into glossy spectacle and turned it into, in his words, another Arnold action flick. 2. Quiz Show from Hell. One of the real-life inspirations for The Running Man came from Japan's Trans-American Ultra Quiz.
On your marks! Get set!
Killian, I'll be back.
Only in a rerun.
Go!
This game show flew contestants to the US and made them compete in bizarre, punishing challenges, often humiliating or physically exhausting, with losers immediately eliminated. American producers were fascinated by the spectacle, and the idea of mixing travel, hardship, and comedy fed directly into the exaggerated death game concept in The Running Man. Media historians argue that while the movie amped it up with stalkers and explosions, the DNA of those extreme Japanese shows is all over the film's satirical tone. 3. Book ends in flames. The ending of the book is wildly different. In the novel, the hero is an underfed working-class man who volunteers to be on the show in order to pay for his sick daughter's medical treatment and get his wife out of prostitution. At the end of the book, after enduring weeks of pursuit and losing everything, Richards hijacks a plane. Mortally wounded and out of options, he crashes it into the TV network's skyscraper, killing himself and destroying the system that exploited him. In 1987, that was considered too bleak and unfilmable, so instead, the movie ends with Arnold blowing up the show's set and walking off victorious. 4. One movie, 4 directors. The production was a carousel of directors. Andrew Davis, The Fugitive, was hired first but got fired after just a week. George Cosmatos, Rambo 2, was briefly floated, and others circled before Paul Michael Glaser, best known as Starsky from Starsky and Hutch, finally landed the job. Arnold later blasted Glaser, saying he shot it like a TV episode instead of a cinematic film. 5. Superman almost ran. Early in development, the studio considered casting Christopher Reeve as Ben Richards. It made sense. In Stephen King's novel, Richards is an ordinary, desperate man, closer to Reeve's frame than Arnold's muscles. But Hollywood in the late 80s was chasing summer blockbuster money, not political allegory. By choosing Arnold, the film abandoned the idea of a vulnerable everyman and doubled down on action movie spectacle. The satire didn't disappear, but it came wrapped in explosions, one-liners, and a larger-than-life hero designed to sell tickets. 6. Arnold vs. The Final Cut. Arnold was brutally honest about the film in later interviews. He said it looked cheap and like it was shot for television. He felt the satire deserved a more serious, Blade Runner-style treatment. Still, he admitted the movie's popularity proved him wrong. 7. Richard Dawson's masterclass. While Arnold carried the action, Richard Dawson stole the movie. His role as Damon Killian, the smarmy game show host, was a perfect mix of charm and cruelty. Dawson based the character on his own reputation as America's game show king, but exaggerated the manipulative, controlling side of TV production. Critics at the time singled out Dawson as the film's secret weapon. Some even said he should have been nominated for awards. The real professor, the hockey mask-wearing Sub-Zero, was played by professional wrestler Toru Tanaka, known in the ring as Professor Tanaka. A Japanese-American strongman and Hollywood regular, Tanaka built a career playing villains in action films, including Revenge of the Ninja and Last Action Hero. His exaggerated style gave Sub-Zero that perfect mix of menace and cartoonish fun, making him one of the film's most memorable stalkers. 9. Jesse Ventura's Spandex Rebellion. Jesse the Body Ventura, another pro wrestler and future politician, played Captain Freedom, and he hated every second in the spandex costumes. A real pro wrestler, Ventura thought the outfits made him look ridiculous. The irony is that his embarrassment highlights exactly what the movie was doing, turning violence into theater, wrestling into spectacle. What King wrote as biting satire became, in Hollywood's hands, campy showmanship. Ventura later joked that wearing those outfits was more humiliating than anything he'd done in the wrestling ring. 10. Dynamo was an opera singer. Dynamo, the opera singing stalker with an electric car, was played by Erland Van Lith. He was no ordinary actor. Van Lith was an MIT graduate, a computer expert, an Olympic-level wrestler, and a trained opera singer. He terrified audiences earlier as the hulking Grossberger in Stir Crazy. Sadly, he died of heart failure just a year after The Running Man wrapped, at only 34 years old. 11. Adidas in the Apocalypse. Look closely at Arnold's runner outfit. Those bright yellow spandex uniforms have Adidas logos prominently displayed. The company struck a deal for product placement, and the 3 stripes appear repeatedly throughout the film. It's jarring in a dystopian setting, but also a sly satire of corporations slapping branding on anything, even death games. 12. Hey, it's that guy. The movie is full of hey, it's that guy character actors. Sven-Ole Thorsen, Arnold's real-life friend and frequent co-star, plays Dawson's hulking bodyguard. He pops up in Conan the Barbarian, Predator, and even Gladiator. Another face is Dweezil Zappa, son of Frank Zappa, who plays one of the group of underground rebels led by none other than Mick Fleetwood. The Fleetwood Mac drummer even makes a sly joke about erasing all of Mick's old records, a wink to his music career. Keen-eyed viewers will also spot Kurt Fuller, who later became a reliable comedy villain in films like Ghostbusters 2 and Wayne's World. 13. Shot like real TV, the producers brought in actual television crews to shoot the audience sequences. This wasn't just for convenience. They wanted the footage to feel like authentic broadcast television. It also helped sell the satire of TV spectacle. 14. Commando's jacket returns. Recognize Arnold's military uniform jacket in the opening helicopter massacre scene? It was recycled from Commando. Wardrobe on The Running Man had a tight budget, and they raided previous productions for usable costumes. 15. Paula Abdul's pre-pop choreo. Those high-energy dance numbers between the stalker introductions? They were choreographed by none other than Paula Abdul. At the time, Abdul was the Laker Girls' head choreographer and just breaking into music video work. Her flashy, MTV-style routines gave the movie's game show segments their authentic glitz, a perfect contrast to the blood sport happening in the arena. Just a year later, she'd launch her own pop career with Straight Up, but before that, she was making sure The Running Man's dancers hit every beat. 16. The One-Liner Factory. The Running Man is stuffed with Arnold's trademark quips. He had to split. These one-liners weren't throwaway jokes. They were part of the marketing, the audience expectation, and the larger lexicon of the genre. In hindsight, these campy jokes are just as iconic as the action itself, cementing The Running Man as a prime example of how 80s blockbusters blurred violence with humor.
I've seen you before. You're the asshole on TV.
17. From flop to cult classic, The Running Man wasn't a huge box office hit when it came out. It landed in the middle of the pack for 1987. But in the 90s, constant reruns on cable and VHS rentals gave it a second life. For a whole generation, it became a late-night staple, quoted as much for Arnold's one-liners as for its outrageous villains. That afterlife turned the film into a true cult classic, remembered far more fondly today than when it first premiered. 18. Running into Hunger Games. People often compare The Running Man to The Hunger Games and Squid Game, but what's fascinating is the difference in tone. The Hunger Games framed the violence as grim survival, while Squid Game leaned into desperation and social commentary. The Running Man wrapped its violence in over-the-top spectacle, predicting how real TV might package suffering as entertainment. In some ways, it's even closer to American Idol or Survivor, where the audience cheers not just winners, but the humiliation of losers. 19. Stalkers to Gladiators. The Running Man didn't just predict reality TV, it directly inspired the design of future game shows. Japanese producers cited it as an influence on Takeshi's Castle, the obstacle course madhouse that became most extreme elimination challenge in the US. And in America, the over-the-top Stalkers paved the way for American Gladiators, where larger-than-life athletes with stage names and gimmicks battled regular contestants for TV glory. Both shows proved that audiences loved the spectacle of contestants facing superhuman opponents, a concept The Running Man had already taken to its bloodiest extreme. 20. Reality TV prophecy. Looking back, The Running Man feels less like a wild 80s action flick and more like a prophecy. Its world of game shows built on humiliation and bloodshed paved the way for everything from American Gladiators to Squid Game. It's hard to miss how much the spectacle of reality TV, social media, and even politics often blur the line between entertainment and exploitation. In that sense, The Running Man isn't just a cult classic, it's one of the most influential links in the entire dystopian genre. The Running Man may look like an over-the-top Arnold vehicle, but behind the neon costumes and one-liners, it was a chaotic, satirical production that accidentally predicted the future. And with a new remake on the way, it might finally get the grim adaptation Stephen King wanted all along. Which of these facts surprised you the most? And do you want the remake to go darker, or keep the spandex charm of the original? Let us know in the comments.